Hey strangers, if I would have known this one thing before I started my transition, man, my whole transition would have been so much easier. So throughout my whole transition, it has been such a roller coaster in so many ways. But one of the biggest ways it's been a roller coaster is the process that I went through with doctors. I went from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor. I started out with one doctor when I started my hormone blockers, and that was one doctor that I had that was great, tended to my needs, explained to me what the process was and how my transition would look. And the only issue with that was that when I turned 18, everything stopped. So it was a hospital that only dealt with youth, and as soon as I turned 18, I would have to find a different doctor. And then 18 came along, and I was looking for a different doctor that could also be my family doctor and tend to my hormone replacement therapy needs. And I was put on a wait list for a very long time, over a year. Over a year, I don't remember if it was 2 years, but it was for sure over a year. And that was a really hard thing for me to go through because meanwhile, while I was on this wait list and I didn't have a doctor after I was dismissed when I was 18, I had to go to walk-in clinics, I had to go to nurses, I had to go find other medical clinics that could tend to my needs because I needed my testosterone. And if I didn't get my testosterone, then everything, like basically my worst nightmare would happen, and I would basically start detransitioning in every way possible, and I absolutely did not want that. So I was relentless on my journey. I made sure and found a doctor. I got on as many wait lists as I could, and now I have finally found a doctor that is both a family doctor and specializes in gender affirming care. So that has been so much better for me because not only is it within reach, I can make my way there. It's not a century away. They're reliable, and I get my meds when I need it, and I'm always getting updated on my levels and so on and so forth. So for anyone transitioning out there, it is a game changer, a game changing piece of information to know that it is really, 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 really important to find a reliable and someone that makes you feel safe and tended to doctor. I'm going to say that again because this is the one thing that I wish I knew before I started my transition. I wish that I knew that I needed to find a reliable doctor that specialized in both gender affirming care and was a family doctor that can tend to all of my medical needs. It is so important because the roller coaster that you could save yourself from having to go through will pay you in the long run. Now, my process certainly wasn't linear, but if I could save anyone transitioning from having to go through all the trials and tribulations and hurdles that I had to, or at least lessen that for anyone watching this, I would say to number one, make calls and get on wait lists. I know wait lists are daunting, and I know it feels like you've hit a brick wall and you're not going to make any progress, and a wait list is going to take years and years, and you'll be old and brittle before you get to actually be called up and be like, hey, like I'm willing to take you on. But it is better than nothing. Make all the calls you can and get on as many wait lists as you possibly can for doctors that you feel would fit and that also specialize in gender affirming care and as a family doctor, a general doctor. Another important tip I would give you is to join community groups, specifically on Reddit. Now, Reddit can be a very not so friendly place, but it can also be a super helpful place because people are very honest and straight to the point. You want to join LGBT community lists community groups on there to ask people who their doctors are within your area and find out, who's reliable, who specializes in what you need them to specialize in. And yeah, it is a really great platform to find that information on. Another important tip I would give you guys is to not be afraid to look a little bit past your city or a little bit past your comfortability point of traveling. Now, the reason why I say that is because it is so much more worth it to have to make an hour commute to a doctor that you can trust, that you can rely on, that can meet your needs, versus not having a doctor at all. Be willing to travel a bit because it will benefit you in the end. And another tip I'm going to touch on that I've touched on many times in this video already, but it's so important to make sure of, is that you find a doctor that is a general doctor that also specializes in gender affirming care. I know that's a lot to ask for, but they don't even need to be super versed in gender affirming care, but they need to know the basics of what goes into hormone replacement therapy, hormone blockers, how to check your levels, and make sure that they're within the range that they need to be at all times. Every time you're getting a checkup for anything else, you want to make sure that they're also checking your testosterone levels or your estrogen levels or your progesterone levels. Basically all your hormone levels. And the last and final tip is to be persistent. I know how hard it is, depending on where you live or how the laws are, when it comes to finding a good, reliable, educated doctor that can check off all of your needs. But if it takes patience, it takes patience. And if it takes some time, if it takes months or maybe over a year, then you're working towards something that in the long run will benefit you. And I know that's hard to see now if you're looking for a doctor right now or if you're in that dilemma, but it will pay off in the end. As long as you implement the tips that I gave you guys and are continuously reaching out, even making appointments with doctors, seeing if you feel comfortable with them and trusting them and staying persistent, you will find your way and you will be so happy that you did that now rather than years down the line in your transition like I did, which ended up paining me a whole lot more than it needed to if I was proactive about it in the beginning. If anyone watching this has any good tips for finding a good doctor, drop them in the comments so that we can help out anybody else that's also going through the same thing and wants a little bit of guidance. That's all I got for you guys today, and have a good one.